morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're tuning in. Welcome to another episode of Cup of Cocoa and Chat. Whether you're driving, getting your workout in, running errands, or just cozying up with your favorite throw blanket, I am so glad you're here. I am Princess, your host. This is the space where we sip, share, and move through life with intention, no matter where we are. Because today we're talking about navigating vacations in uncertain times. So, summer is coming. We're in spring, although some days it doesn't feel like it, but we're in spring and some of us are getting in that vacation mode or ready for the vacation vibes, right? Because summer is usually a season of memories, relaxation, family gatherings, vacations, road trips, cruises, and taking a break from our everyday routines. We need time to play, explore, and simply enjoy life. But lately, many people are asking questions before packing their bags. So this week, May the 18th through May 24th, our theme for Cup of Cocoa and Chat is travel, fear, and faith. Navigating summer plans in uncertain times, right? From rising costs, travel disruptions, health concerns, and unexpected changes, many people are wondering, should I travel? Can I can I afford it? Is it safe? And should I wait? Today is Monday, May 18th, and this is episode number 46. Today's episode title is Should We Still Travel? Fear, Cost, and Faith in Uncertain Times. So, in today's climate, fuel costs have increased, travel disruptions have created unexpected expenses and additional planning. Health concerns have created uncertainty, uncertainties for people, for some people. And sudden changes have quickly shifted plans, right? Because lately it feels like every time we turn on the news, there's another travel headline, higher cost, airline changes, health concerns, cruise worries, delays, and unexpected situations. And for some of us, excitement has slowly turned into anxiety. So today's conversation is about just that. Is it safe? The art of pivoting, faith over fear, and planning for unexpected changes. Our core talking points today are number one, the cost of making memories. Number two, fear is real. Number three, when plans suddenly change, the pivot, right? Number four, faith through uncertainty. And number five, the planning phase. So there will always be travel concerns, always. And stories that and the stories that we hear about, right? There's always going to be something. But we also have to remember to live, create memories, and enjoy our families because life keeps moving regardless to what is going on around us, right? So today's Coco question is, has fear ever made you cancel or delay a trip? Or are you still packing your bags and going? Okay? So let's talk about it. Let's get right into it. Segment number 1, the cost of making memories. So let's talk about something we all are, or many of us are feeling right now. And that's the cost of making memories. Many months ago, I'm sorry, many moons ago, vacations used to feel a little more spontaneous. So many moons ago, also many months ago, vacations used to feel a little spontaneous. Somebody would say, let's take a quick trip, or let's jump in a car this weekend and go somewhere. But unfortunate, these days, that conversation feels a little different. Airlines, trains, buses, and even our road trips are all feeling the the effects of the rising fuel costs. And when fuel prices go up, those costs eventually trickle down to us, right? We're seeing it in flights, right? The flights are higher than ever. We're seeing it in hotels. We're seeing it in rental cars. We're definitely seeing it at the gas pump. So now families, couples, and even solo travelers are budgeting harder. And if we're being like real about it, um, some of us aren't just planning a vacation anymore. We're planning for the vacation, if you know what I mean, right? And I was looking at the estimated travel costs when I was putting this episode together. I was doing research, and for many families of four, a week long vacation can easily run into the several thousands of dollars, right? And we're talking about the high end, right? Couples are spending thousands as well on domestic and international travel. And even solo trips have become more expensive than they used to be. Man, let's be honest. Some families spend much more than the average, right? Now, if you're that avid traveler who is constantly online and searching for the right price for the right time, kudos to you. Like I'm looking for flights for my upcoming cruise in October, and man, these prices are extremely expensive, right? I've checked on Tuesdays, I believe is the day, Tuesday, and like it's another day, maybe Wednesday. Wednesday. I know for sure Tuesday. But yeah, I am thinking about, like, when you go on and you book the flight and then you um go to the next one. I'm just thinking about booking the flight there and then going to um not doing it all together, and maybe it'll be cheaper, if you know what I mean. Like when you pick that flight and then the next thing that pops up is the return flight. I'm thinking about not doing it that way and just doing it separate, right? The departure separate from the return, to see if that makes a difference, because the flights are very, 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 very expensive now. Because once you add your luggage on top of the flights, once you add the luggage fees, you add your food, you add your souvenirs, your attractions, excursions, extra spending money, and those little things that somehow magically appear, that budget starts stretching very quickly, right? Very quickly, right? You leave saying, I'm only spending this amount. And then somehow you come back saying, wait a minute, where did that extra money go? Like, I know that happens to me a lot. I set a budget, and I think if I traveled by myself, it I would probably be able to stick to my budget, um, because I've gotten used to sticking to a budget since I retired. But for the most part, when I travel, I'm traveling with my partner, I'm traveling with my grandkids. So sometimes my budget can get out of whack, especially with the grandkids. So let's reflect really quick here. Some families aren't saying no to travel because they don't want to go. They're saying no because they're trying to be responsible. And I get that, right? I get that, right? So if you're listening and planning for a trip in 2026 or even later, my suggestion is simple. Start planning now. Look at your budget. Put money aside weekly if you can. Some people use their tax refunds. So if you haven't gotten yours and you're expecting it, maybe take a chunk of that. Some people put away larger amounts over time. Like some people save for 2 years for a trip. Some people create a dedicated travel fund. Some people take out loans. Whatever works for your household, just plan for wherever you're going. And with all the uncertainties that we are facing, just be very mindful of how you plan and what you're planning for. Because a dream vacation doesn't always start with a plane ticket. Sometimes it starts with a budget. And honestly, stay vacations, or staycations as they call it, staycations are becoming more attractive these days. There are options for solo travelers. Um, there are options for couples, even options for families of four or more, right? When you talk about those staycations. I'm getting my yard together so I can plant my behind in a chair and put my legs up and read and research and do all the things that I do, right? Because you don't always have to leave the country or even leave your state to create meaningful memories. But because sometimes the destination isn't what people remember most, right? It's who they share it with. So keep that in mind, right? Keep that in mind. It's not always the destination, it's who you share it with. Okay? But while cost is one side of the conversation, fear is another. Because lately, people aren't only asking, can I afford it? They're also asking, is it safe? Okay? So that's where I want to go next. Segment 2 is fear is real. Fear is real. So let's get into the other side of this conversation. Because, like I said, cost is one thing, but fear, that's another. Fear can stop us before we ever pack the bag. And if you've been watching the news lately, and I know a lot of you have, sometimes the information alone can be overwhelming. Every day it feels like there is another headline, another breaking story, another alert, another video, another social media post. And remember, before long, if you're not careful, information can slowly turn into anxiety. Remember, I said that. Taking in all of that information becomes overwhelming and can definitely turn into anxiety. Because what people hear, they hear about the illness, they hear about the outbreaks, they hear about the travel disruptions. And then social media starts doing what social media sometimes does, amplify whatever it is. And then one video turns into 10 videos. One post turns into 50 opinions. And suddenly everybody becomes an expert. Everybody becomes an expert. And if we're honest, some of those posts are designed to make us stop scrolling, right? It's that click and bait. They want you to click on, they want you to listen to what they have to say, even if the information isn't real. Because a lot of it is scare tactic, right? Some of it is meant to scare us, right? Some are missing important details. And after seeing enough of it, people begin to say, I don't know if I want to fly. I don't know if I want to leave the country. I don't know if I want to go on a cruise. And speaking of cruises, I was recently talking with my grandsons on Thursday when I dropped my grandson off. My older grandson came out, got in the car, and we sat in the car for an hour. We talked about so many different things. But one of the things that we talked about was our family cruise that I planned for December. And I told them I wanted our cruise to be a Christmas gift for, all of us, right? A chance to create memories together, right? And my youngest grandson, who was in the front seat because I was dropping him off, looked at me and said, I'm not going on a cruise because all the recent health scares have been on cruises, right? He didn't use those words, but that's basically what he was trying to say. And, I just had to pause for a moment because I realized something. He wasn't speaking from experience, definitely not his experience, because he hasn't experienced anything like this. Um, he was speaking from headlines, things he has seen either on the news or TikTok, because he stays on TikTok, right? He was speaking from clips and conversations around him, his socials. You know, he was he was coming from that angle, not experience. So I had to explain to him that's not exactly how this works, right? I told him, don't listen to everybody. Do your research. Because the virus that he was speaking about, he was giving me wrong information. And I had to, debunk it. I had to tell him that actually was not true. Um, and also, I told him illness can happen in many places, not just on cruises. You know, people travel through airports, people travel on buses, people travel on planes, people gather at concerts, schools, stores, restaurants, sporting events, and malls. And that is exactly why when I pick him up from school, he has on a mask. He has on a mask. He wears a mask every day to school, faithfully, right? And so I explained, you're wearing that mask for a reason because you can get sick or catch a virus right here at your school. Because life itself involves risk. But hear me clearly, Cocoa family. I'm not saying ignore the information, right? I'm not saying throw wisdom out the window. I am saying something different. All I am saying is being informed is different from living in fear, right? So, with that, stay informed, do your own research, ask questions, take precautions if you need to, but use your wisdom. Don't allow every headline to steal your joy or every social media post to make your world smaller. Big mistake, right? Because if we spend our whole lives afraid of what could happen, we may miss the moments that are happening, right? And speaking of things not going according to plan, sometimes fear isn't the only challenge that we face, right? Sometimes life simply changes the plan for us. And when that happens, we have to learn the art of the pivot. We learned about pivoting during the 2020 pandemic, right? Everything that we knew that existed had to change in order to protect ourselves, for companies and schools and all of the businesses to put precautions in place, right? So we learned about pivot. We were thrown into pivot. Even if you've never pivoted before, you had to pivot in 2020, right? So let's talk about something that happened no matter how well we plan, right? Life can suddenly change the itinerary because recently we've seen travelers affected by airline disruptions, cancellations. We've seen delays and unexpected changes, right? And when things happen unexpectedly, everybody feels it differently. right? The recent change that we seen that was in the headlines, some people were already enjoying their vacation and didn't know how they were going to come um, travel back home. Some people had just arrived at the airport ready for the takeoff, right? They were ready for their vacations or wherever they had to travel to. And some people had traveled travel plans scheduled weeks or months away. And now not knowing what they were going to do, right? For example, my niece had already purchased her plane ticket for this weekend. Keith Lee, um, the food reviewer on TikTok that became famous, he had like a family reunion type festival. And she had already purchased everything back in February. She had purchased her ticket, which was over $400. She purchased her airfare only to hear or to get notification that Spirit um, went out of business. So she had to pivot and find other travel plans that cost her more, right? So she had to pivot. But regardless of where anybody during that time, no matter where they were in their process, they all found themselves in the same situation. And that was trying to figure it out. Now what? Now what? What do I do now? Right? And that's where the stress begins. And because suddenly you're trying to rebook flights, you're checking your apps every few minutes. Prices may be changing. You're trying to get home. Some of them are trying to get home. Some of them are trying to figure out where they're going to stay because it may have been changes in the hotel. I don't know. Or locations change, right? At that point, you're calling family members, you're looking at schedules, and now what was supposed to be relaxation starts feeling like work. So whatever situation you find yourself in when life is thrown at us, you're no longer relaxed. Because you got to think about all these things because you got to pivot now. And you got to think about all these things that you got to do. You got to change this, change that, change this, right? And relaxation starts feeling like work. And that's not good, right? Because the reason for relaxation is to get away from work, you know? And I think that's one of the reasons travel feels different these days. Because years ago, many people packed a bag and just went. Now people are planning for things they hope never happen, right? Yeah, that's how it is now, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying expect the worst, right? But what I am saying is prepare for possibilities because life comes at us and we never know what's going to happen. You know, people that purchase their their airfare with Spirit the week or that week that they close, they never expected that. Or people who have purchased future tickets for Spirit, they didn't expect that to happen, but now they got to pivot and find that next solution, or not that next solution, but they have to pivot and find the solution. Because preparation isn't negativity. Preparation is wisdom. So, because when you stay ready, you do not have to get ready, right? When you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So if you're planning a trip, here are a few pivot ideas to think about, right? Consider flexible travel dates when possible, just in case something comes up, right? Consider flexible travel dates when possible. Think about travel insurance, whether it fits your situation, right? It's always good to have. Have backup transportation ideas, okay? You have people who will depart on one airline, right? Get to their destination, enjoy themselves, and depart on another airline, or a whole different mode of transportation, because their arrival took them to the destination and they met whoever they needed to meet, and maybe they hooked up and got together and traveled, back to home or wherever needed, wherever the second destination was. So always have a backup transportation idea. Keep emergency funds in your travel budget. That's very helpful. Few months back, um, when people had gone to Jamaica, right? And they had the storm or hurricane. They had the bad weather, and they had to. Their flights were delayed, and they weren't able to travel. They weren't able to depart at the time that they were due to travel to return home, because airport had closed. And so they had to bunker down where they were staying if there was room. Um, a lot of the staff couldn't go get to their homes, or their homes were destroyed. So it was so many things. And I remember watching all those videos. Um, People were setting up GoFundMe's. And then people on TikTok were just sending the people that were uh, affected, were just sending them monies, so that, you know, because a lot of them only took money for their travel, right? Because we don't think that anything's going to happen, right? So that's very important, to keep emergency funds in your travel budget, because at, in this climate, we never know what's going to happen, right? Save important information in more than one place. Okay, that's important as well. And share travel plans with family if you're traveling far. So, those are just a few pivot ideas to think about when you're planning for your next trip. Okay, now if a trip changes, if dates change, if plans shift, if the vacation doesn't happen exactly the way you imagine it, that doesn't automatically mean it's ruined. Okay? Sometimes the memory isn't in the perfect plan, it's in how we learn to pivot. Be creative when you're pivoting. Um, think about the ideas that I gave you, incorporate those. I'm not saying that you will always have that perfect vacation or that perfect travel, because things happen. I'm just saying, learn the art of pivoting, okay? Because life has taught many of us something. We may not control every detour, but we can control how we respond. And I don't know why I am not able to talk today, because I was relaxing all yesterday. So I'm not even sure why I'm having a issue getting words out. I don't know. So after you've done the planning, right? And after you've done your research, and after you have prepared everything, there comes a point where you're done all you can do. And that's where I want you to talk about, and that's where I want to talk about faith. Okay? That's where I want to talk about faith. Right? So we've talked about the cost, right? We've talked about the fear. And after that, we've talked about pivoting when plans change. And I think we eventually have to arrive at something a lot bigger, which is faith. Because uncertainty can make us feel like we need every answer before we take the first step. Because we always want guarantees, right? We want certainty. We want to know exactly how everything will work out. But if we're honest, life doesn't work like that. It doesn't always give us that, right? Sometimes we don't know what next month looks like, right? Sometimes we don't know what next year will look like. Sometimes we don't know if plans will stay the same. And sometimes we don't know if circumstances will change. And that's where faith steps into this conversation. Now, hear me clearly. Faith doesn't mean pretending bad things cannot happen. Faith doesn't mean ignoring your wisdom. Faith doesn't mean acting like challenges don't exist. Faith means trusting God while still using your wisdom. Okay? Let me say that again for the people in the back. Faith means trusting God while still using your wisdom. Okay? Because here's the thing, right? We lock our doors every night, but we still pray. We buckle our seatbelts, right? But we still pray. We save our money, but we still pray. We prepare and still trust in God, right? Because preparation and faith were never enemies, right? I just want to be clear about that. Preparation and faith were never enemies. Faith isn't the absence of preparation. Faith is peace while you're preparing. And I think many times people believe trusting God means sitting back and doing nothing. Because throughout life, we still make plans. We still prepare our families. We still use our wisdom. And we still gather information. And then after we've done what we can do, we release the rest. Okay? Scripture that comes to mind is from the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. I love that scripture because it doesn't say you understand everything, right? It doesn't say you know every turn in advance. It just simply says trust. Do not lean on your own understanding, but trust. So you can prepare, right? Because preparation is excellent, right? So don't let uncertainty convince you that God stopped working. Preparation and faith can sit at the same table. All right? So after we've prayed, after we've trusted in him, and after we've decided not to live in fear, there's still one more thing we can do. So let's talk about putting faith and wisdom together. Because now it's time for the planning phase to continue. Okay? So after all of this conversation about the cost, the fear, unexpected changes, and faith, let's bring this thing home with something practical. The planning phase goes on. Now, most of us already know how to plan for a vacation. That's not why we're here, right? That's not why we are here. Because we know how to pick a destination. We know how to start packing. We know how to count down the days, right? We know how to count down the days. Some of us even start mentally packing months before we leave. So the cruise that I'm going on in October, the end of October through the beginning of November, is adult only cruise. I'm going on the Virgin Voyage cruise line. I've already started buying things. I'm mentally prepared for that. Now talking with my grandsons, I gotta start stepping up for the cruise that I want to take them on in December. So, which means I got to get my monies together. I got to start the planning. Um, so I've already, like, it's already locked in, right? I'm already mentally packing and preparing for. I'm mentally packing for the one in October, but I'm mentally preparing for um, the one in December, right? So we mentally pack months before we leave, right? Because what you do is you get into what is called that vacation mode, right? You become that beast right? Getting all the things. And I don't know if anybody is like me, but I write everything down, right? If I'm going anywhere for 5 days, I gotta have at least two outfits, one for the daytime and one for the nighttime, right? And then I may have an outfit that I can run to the if I gotta run out for something or whatever. So I don't mess up those two outfits that I have for that day. This is like a extra outfit, maybe some shorts or, depending on the year, just something that I can run out and get whatever I need to get. Or I'm thinking when I've never been on a cruise, so I'm thinking, that late night when I can't sleep, because a lot of times I can't sleep, I may want to just get up and walk around the ship or, whatever. So I'm already there. I'm already thinking. My mind, my little wheels in my mind are turning, right? Right. So I'm already that beast. I'm already in vacation mode when I haven't even gotten there. I haven't even got my flight because the flights are so high. I'm waiting to find a decent price. So anyway, enough of that. I digress. You know, but so what I'm going to say next is I want to keep this very simple because planning isn't just about preparing for the trip, right? We talked about everything, right? It's about preparing your mind for that, for the experience too, right? It's all about that. Like I said, I know that sometimes I can't sleep. I'll be able to get up and walk around the ship, and explore what's going on while everybody's asleep, that type of thing, you know? So, you want to ask yourself, what kind of experience do I really want? Right? Do I just want to rest? Do I want an adventure? Maybe family time? Could it be just peace and quiet? Right? Or a chance to disconnect? What about just new memories, right? So after you looked at the cost, you got over the fear, you did all the necessary changes, pivoting, whatever needed to be done. Now we want to get into it mentally, right? You want to ask yourself those questions because you want to know, what do you want out of this? Right? Because sometimes we become so focused on getting somewhere that we forget why we wanted to go in the first place. Right? And I think that's important. Think about the experience and the time, right? Because every trip doesn't have to be extravagant. Every trip doesn't have to look like the trips that you see people on social media having. Every moment doesn't have to be picture perfect. Picture perfect. Sometimes the best memories come from simple moments, like laughing in a car, a late night conversation, simply trying new food, maybe watching the sunset, or just being present. Don't become so busy planning the perfect trip that you forget to enjoy the people you're taking it with. It could be just a solo trip, right? It could be just a solo trip. So think about the experience that you want to have. Prepare for that, okay? And maybe for somebody listening today, your next trip isn't even about getting away. Maybe it's just reconnecting with your family, reconnecting with yourself, reconnecting with your joy. Because no matter where you go, you deserve moments that refill your heart too. So, all right, Cocoa family, as we close out today's conversations, I want to sit, I want you to sit with this. Life will always give us reasons to wait. There will always be another headline, another concern, another unexpected expense, another uncertainty, another reason to say maybe later. But if we spend our lives waiting for perfect conditions, we may miss the moments that were meant to bring us joy. So today we talked about the rising costs. We talked about fear. We talked about plans changing. We talked about faith. And through all of it, I hope you heard one thing clearly. You don't have to live recklessly, but you also do not have to live afraid. So research, prepare, use your wisdom, make adjustments when necessary, right? So that you can pivot when you need to. Trust God through the process. And remember that memories aren't always measured by distance traveled, luxury hotels, or expensive destination. Sometimes the most meaningful moments come from simply being together with your loved ones, laughing a little longer, taking the picture, getting on the plane, taking a road trip, saying yes to the experience, that mental, that mental preparation, getting ready for that experience, right? Because life isn't only about existing, it's about living. And don't let fear convince you to stop creating moments that your heart will remember forever. Okay? So if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who may need it. This is Princess, the host of Cup of Cocoa and Chat. And as always, my loves, peace and blessings. I love you, and I mean it. Bye for now.